India itself, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has actually he's going to Kuwait, and in fact he has emplaned to Kuwait, and it's a historic visit which we are tracking here at News 9. In fact, this is a first visit by an Indian Prime Minister in almost 4 decades. In fact, after more than 4 decades, an Indian Prime Minister, as I told you, has departed for Kuwait for a 2-day visit. Modi has become the first Indian Prime Minister in over 42 years to visit this very country. This visit is not just a diplomatic engagement, it is a movement of a renewed partnership between two nations whose ties goes back centuries, rooted in trade and cultural exchanges. In fact, why does this matters to us back home? Well, with over 10 lakh Indians living and working in Kuwait, the largest, in fact, community in the Gulf country, where their welfare and contribution has actually empowered both economies and, in fact, has come at a pivotal juncture. Kuwait is also a vital partner for India's energy security, ranking as the 6th largest supplier of crude oil. Bilateral trade between the two nations have reached a robust $10.47 billion, with Kuwait investments in India crossing the whopping mark of $10 billion. Clear signs of deepening economic ties. In fact, but there's more. This visit also holds significance for strengthening defense cooperation, trade and people-to-people ties. In fact, PM Modi's agenda includes high-level talks with Kuwaiti leaders, addressing the Indian diaspora, symbolic engagements and a visit to a labor camp to convey the government's commitment to their welfare. With regional stability and economic opportunities at stake, what happens in Kuwait will resonate strongly back in India. Well, this is a historic visit which is coming, in fact, after 42 years, and in fact, this makes Prime Minister Narendra Modi the first Prime Minister to visit Kuwait. In fact, not only this, but there are multiple things on agenda, starting from discussions on bilateral issues, in fact, defense, cooperation between the two nations, and also human resource will remain one of the key factors and key points of discussion in this very visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Kuwait. In fact, what also important here to highlight is the defense ties which both the nation holds. Intelligence sharing is one of those things which these countries have been doing for the last many decades. In fact, cyber defense initiatives combat online risk is also one of the key agendas there, because cyber defense remains one of the key issues pertaining to any nation prevailing in this very atmosphere. Well, my colleague Kabir Naqvi also spoke to the panel of guests decoding this very visit and the significance of this very visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Kuwait.
After more than 4 decades, an Indian Prime Minister is set to visit Kuwait, marking a pivotal moment in the relationship between these two historic partners. You've got Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is going to be embarking on a 2-day visit to Kuwait, the first by an Indian Prime Minister in over 42 years. And this visit is not just a diplomatic engagement, it's a moment of renewed partnership between these two nations, whose ties, like I mentioned, go back centuries, rooted in trade and cultural exchange through the waterways. Now, why does this matter to us back at home? Because with over 10 lakh Indians living and working in Kuwait, calling it their home, which is the largest expatriate community in the Gulf country, their welfare and contributions to both economies are pivotal. Kuwait is also a vital partner for India's energy security, ranking as our 6th largest supplier of crude oil. Now, bilateral trade between the two nations, it reached a robust $10.47 billion US, with Kuwaiti investments in India crossing $10 billion as well. All of this clear signs of deepening economic ties. But then again, Prime Minister's visit, there's key highlights to talk about as well, because there is more. This visit holds significance for strengthening defense cooperation, trade, and of course, people-to-people ties. Prime Minister Modi's agenda, it includes a high-level talk with the Kuwaiti leaders, addressing the Indian diaspora, symbolic engagements, and visiting a labor camp to convey the government's commitment to their welfare. Now, with regional stability and economic opportunities at stake, what happens in Kuwait resonates strongly back in India as well. Joining me here on the broadcast is an esteemed set of panelists as we explore the impact and the potential of this historic visit. With me on the broadcast, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, former Ambassador of India to Kuwait. A very warm welcome to you, sir. And Dr. Zakir Hussain, West Asian expert. Ambassador, I'm going to quickly come to you first. We've got a couple of reactions as well. But before that, the first reaction from you. Ambassador, 1961, we had a trade commissioner. That's all we had. That's the first set of diplomatic ties with this country. 1981 is when Indira Gandhi visited. After that, 2009 is when Hamid Ansari, the vice president. That was one of the highest, level meets. Now, cut to 2024. Prime Minister Modi, after Oman, Saudi Arabia, after UAE, his last piece of the jigsaw West Asia puzzle. What are you expecting? What do you think is likely to be on the cards?
Well, thanks for having me on your show. You have rightly highlighted the most important points. Firstly, that this is the first visit by an Indian Prime Minister to Kuwait after 43 years. Mrs. Indira Gandhi had visited in 1981, and since then there has not been any visit at the level of head of state or head of government from the Indian side. Now, secondly, this is the first high-level visit in a decade, because the former Kuwaiti Prime Minister had visited India in 2013, but then after that there has been no high-level visit from either side. Thirdly, and this is very significant, it is Prime Minister Modi's first visit to Kuwait. And as you said, this completes the jigsaw puzzle. But as I would like to put it, it fits in a very important part of his engagement with the Gulf countries, because Kuwait is a very important country in the Gulf and has been a very important partner of India. And his visit to Kuwait, his first ever visit there, is very significant. Then there are certain other aspects. Firstly, the huge Indian community, which numbers more than 1 million. In fact, it is even more than 1.1 million. And Prime Minister always engages with the community because he sends out signals to the host government as well as to the community that he cares deeply for the community. And this community in turn remits money. Last year, remittances from the Indian community in Kuwait to India were in excess of $6.3 billion. Then, of course, there is the aspect of bilateral trade. Kuwait is India's large trading partner. For Kuwait, India is the sixth largest trading partner. We find a lot of possibilities of expanding trade. We already export a lot of food items and are widening the range of made in India products which we send to Kuwait. And they in turn export oil. Kuwait is the sixth largest source of oil exports by India. And then, of course, not to forget the important aspect which you mentioned, investments. Kuwait is a very rich country. The sovereign fund called the Kuwait Investment Authority invests money in priority projects around the globe. And increasingly, it has been looking at India as an investment destination. So all said and done, there are various aspects of this visit, both in terms of symbolism and content, which make it very, very important.
All right. Many thanks for your opening comments here, Ambassador. Dr. Hussain, I'm going to come to you in just a quick second, a quick jiffy, because we've got a reaction coming in from Adarsh Swaika, who's the ambassador of India to Kuwait at this point in time, to help us understand the significance of Prime Minister Modi's visit. We've got some preparation shots as well at that symbolic stadium where the Prime Minister is expected to address a large gathering of about 4,000 to 5,000 Indian diaspora as well. Listen in to what the Indian ambassador to Kuwait has to say.
The visit of Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji is very significant, particularly in the context of three important facts. Firstly, that this visit is taking place to Kuwait after a long gap of 43 years. Secondly, this is the only country in the Gulf region that Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji had not visited so far. And thirdly, that between the two sides also, if you see, this is the first high-level visit in the last 1 decade. I think the last Prime Minister of Kuwait had visited India in 2013. So this makes the visit very special. I think it will be high in symbolism, and I can also tell you for sure that the outcomes will be very concrete and will take our relations to new heights.
You know, Dr. Zakir Hussain, is, exactly where the ambassador left us as well. The Indian diaspora over there. Let's tell the viewers and the Indian diaspora that's probably watching this episode as well as to what's in store for them as well. You've got 21% of Kuwait's population that is Indian. It is the largest expatriate group in the country. More than 1 million Indians call Kuwait their home. There's a diverse workforce that drives the key industries. $3 billion in terms of annual remittance to India. 300 plus associations. You've got Indian schools. There's a vibrant mini India culture to absorb as well. And the Indians over there are essential to Kuwait's economic progress. Now, in my trips to Qatar and the other West Asian countries as well, compared to how Indians are thriving and striving in Europe, they are better placed in the West Asian region. I remember watching the World Cup in Qatar. What a great experience that was. The souks, the local markets, and Indians really working there with their head held up high. What do you think the Indian diaspora has in store for them with Prime Minister Modi now coming there, Dr. Hussain?
In June this year, there was a tragic event took place in Kuwait where more than dozens of Indians died due to fire. And that was due to because of that has created a tragedy in both the countries. While Kuwaiti administration immediately rushed to the spot and he found that the middlemen were creating a lot of problem and they were stuffing people in a limited space and were not following the norms set by the government, and they have established, and our junior foreign minister visited at the time and met the people and patients in the hospital, and at that time a joint working commission was established to look after the issues. This is a very important step because and second, Kuwait, under Kuwaitization, Kuwait was ready to expel many expatriates. It was also targeting Indian, but due to our diplomatic efforts, we restored our presence. And today, 30% of the workforce is of Indian origin, and their contribution in healthcare services are remarkable. 30 around 24,000 to 25,000 nurses are working there, thousands of doctors are working there, and dentists are working there. So the care society, trade, and now what I feel that this visit is going to contribute in the field of defense and trade.